Star Citizen Alpha 3.11 is now out to first wave PTU, so let's take a look at its new features and patch notes that it's got at the moment, and what it doesn't have as well. First wave PTU gives access to RSI subscribers and Concierge, in addition to the EVA Kati testers. It still looks to me like Cloud Imperium are pushing for a live build for October 10th, and we should see wider PTU tests before that, so more people being added to that sort of test patch before it goes live. Alpha 3.11 is a pretty light patch content-wise, but it does potentially add a lot of interesting gameplay still, and a huge amount of accessibility and bug fixing. Space stations have been updated both interiorly and exteriorly, if those are real words that I didn't just invent. So the interiors have been changed and should be more simple and easy for players to find their way around them. They've effectively zoned off a load of the areas of the space stations, allowing you to take an elevator to get to where you want to go, and it's sort of like be contained within that area. You can use the interior elevators to access multiple levels of the station, including hangars and habs, commons area, and the new cargo decks. Cargo decks are facilities within rest stops where players can handle all their cargo needs, or at least some of them at the moment, from dropping off and picking up new cargo, buying new cargo equipment, and taking on cargo-related missions. So you can also, at the moment, rent cargo ships there, but it's pretty limited in the forms of what other stuff's there. It's basically just a drop-off and pick-up point for cargo missions, and there's a little shop there as well. These changes also are reflected on the exteriors of stations, with huge cargo pylons there. Something I think will become one of the biggest things in Alpha 3.11 is the removal of armistice zones around the exteriors of rest stops and space stations, allowing players to fire ship weapons in those areas now. And with that, they've added destructible defense turrets. These range from small size 4 turrets placed along and by landing pads that we already had, but now they're destructible, and size 6 sentries, which were in the claim jumper missions, but they've also now added huge size 10 turrets that can be around the perimeter of stations as well. Once these are destroyed, they respawn at the moment after 5 minutes, but they might balance that. They will improve this simplistic system in the future as well. There is a security response system which adds crime stats of all the players in an area together, which is basically known as heat, and then spawns security ships of increasing numbers and strengths in response to that. The system responds quickly to increases in an area's heat by spawning in new ships and despawning out weaker ships that they replace. In the future, the system will also take into account the type of ship the players are using. There's a new law infraction, armistice violation. This is a felony given to players that damage other ships or station defences while they're in an armistice zone. Though it does have a warning and grace period, the crime will only remain on a character's record for 1 day. If a player enters an armistice zone while having a crime stat or gains one while they're there, they would get a warning saying, leave immediately, basically, otherwise you're going to be shot at. If a player that is a criminal is attacked by an NPC or a player that has the authority effectively to arrest them, then that will start a timer, and if you die any time between 1 to 3 minutes based on the level of NPC engagement within that timer, then you will be arrested and basically go to prison. This means that a NPC or player with authority has to actively engage a criminal for them to be put into prison, and they have to die within that timer. Players are offered the option to press charges or forgive crimes committed against them. This defaults to pressing charges on non-party members, but not pressing charges on party members. Pad ramming will be ignored as a crime if committed by another party member. This is mainly to not punish party members for small bumps along the way, basically. You'll still be able to give a party member a crime stat if the pad ramming is so severe it ends with your deaths or the ship's destruction. There is a lesser crime added of indirect killing of players to manslaughter in some cases. This includes crushing players with a vehicle, triggering an explosion, like an explosive barrel or a self-destruct on a ship, that sort of stuff, as well as killing crew on a ship beyond the pilot as well. That's manslaughter. Locking a missile counts as a hostile action and allows the ship that you've locked the missile on to attack you in self-defense without them getting a criminal rating. It also causes security AI and NPCs to attack you and trigger an assaulting an officer law infraction. So it is illegal effectively to do that. Quantum snaring now gives a player a criminal rating or infraction per ship snared. Quantum interdicting criminals is not a crime. Commissary vending machines in prisons are now able to use merits to purchase items properly. Talking of items, there is 2 new weapons from Bearing, the GP-33 grenade launcher that can quickly fire multiple 40mm grenades to really make use of those new force reactions. Also, the BR2 ballistic shotgun, which can be fired semi-auto and is a beast of a shotgun. There are various planetary updates utilising the new planetary painting tools that they've gone through all the planets in the standard system and repainted the ground surfaces and object presets there so that it's future-proofed, and they've updated all the legacy sort of data and planets. Also updating and expanding the current terrain texture library by adding scan data. On a per object basis, they're now able to support hardware tessellation, displacement on geology distributed across terrain to give it a more organic appearance. There's ground cover buoyancy, so seaweed and other things floating on the surface of water, sort of simulating buoyancy better there. Player and external inventory interaction tier 0 has been added, so this is an update to the player inventory system. You are much more able to manage your food, drink, mine rocks items in your personal inventory, moving them between the different pockets and areas of your different armor. So different armor, your legs, your arms, your backpack, your torso, whatever, that all is a separate storage container effectively. You can now interact with the external cargo container of the Grey Cat Rock and actually put things in it or take things out of it, which is great. That allows for a lot more use of the Grey Cat Rock, more so than in 3.10. Throw tier 1 has been added, so grenades and items can be thrown. You'll see their trajectory displayed. You can throw overhand with left click, underhand with right click, as well as holding the corresponding button to prime the grenade before throwing by letting go of the button. Force reactions tier 1. So these are reactions that are triggered for players and NPCs when they're punch, shot, caught in explosions, take damage, get blown around by wind, G-forces on a ship jostle them around, and they sort of like take a bump on the ship. Basically, strong enough forces can knock a player down or blow them away as well, but you'll get some form of reaction based on what is going on around them. And shotguns, close range, that'll blow someone down. Grenades, reasonably close, that will knock someone over. There are a host of missile and countermeasure quality of life improvements. Missiles will react to all countermeasures. Missiles will lose the lock and during the sort of locking process, if the pilot does not keep the target in the lock cone at the front of the ship. Missiles do not have perfect target knowledge anymore. They've added a missile selection HUD widget. Players can select which missiles they launch by cycling, which is shown on the HUD bindable in the menu, and it doesn't have a key by default. Players can only simultaneously lock missiles of the same type if equipped to multiple racks, with a maximum of 4 being able to be locked at once. So you can't lock with multiple missiles if they're different types, but you can lock up with up to 4 of the same type if you had 4 missile racks. There is a minimum distance for acquiring a lock with missiles and torpedoes based on size. Size 1, 1,000 meters minimum distance. Size 2, 1,500 meters. Size 3, 2,000. And size 4, 2,500. So, size 5 plus torpedoes use a different method and have slower release, as these are torpedoes and are all set to 1,000 meters. There is now a UI indication for in and out of lock range, along with the HUD showing the ranges if the target is out of a range. A lock will be lost if the target goes under minimum range as well. For countermeasures, players can now either deploy decoys or noise fields. A decoy is a projectile that emits a very strong signal to spoof missiles, works on all seeking types. A noise field is a limited jamming space, which affects all kinds of sensor readouts, including the launching ship if it's contained within the field. So these have new VFX as well, these countermeasures. They've replaced those countermeasure keybinds because of that, or updated them, I should say, so as you don't need to cycle. They've added countermeasure ammo counters to the HUD. They've extended the missile warning HUD widgets with shortest time to impact display for each incoming seeker or missile type. They've slightly rebalanced all the countermeasures, so big ships like the Carrack have less ammo per launcher, but heavier countermeasure projectiles with longer effects. Ships and vehicle stuff. So the Grey Cat Rock is now purchasable in ship stores in the Persistent Universe. They've increased the constellation thrusters in atmosphere to help with angular rotation and slightly reduce its linear drag for a small acceleration increase. This patch does not currently contain any of the 100 series of ships, however this should be added to the PTU I believe in the next few days. Also, the Mercury Star Runner will be released after 3.11 live in a 3.11.x patch, so bear that in mind. Some other little core updates: the front-ender refactor of the menus has been done, so they sort of streamlined that system, and friends lists pinned to the side when you close them. The character creator has been updated with new head designs. There are some major bug fixes, which we'll talk about very briefly here. Players should no longer be able to avoid security scans by getting out of their seat. They fixed several ATC and pad loitering and impounding bugs, and lots of lore stuff was fixed. The mining nodes should no longer change composition anymore. Players can no longer sell commodities with a bug allowing them to do it at any distance. Diamond icons should no longer remain displayed after service deposits have been mined. They fixed missing geometry and collisions with various ships and points of interest. Various fixes to the Mobiglass and UI have been done. The Mobiglass and management apps should now update properly. They fixed various bits with EVA and ragdolling. ASOP terminals should now correctly show the landing pad the ship is spawned on. Sign distance field entry animations and effects should work more appropriately again. Players should now teleport into the spaceport instead of the hangar after the ship has been impounded. Shopkeepers should now be in their correct positions. They've updated placeholder text to be accurate. They fixed various ships pitching up when taking off. Players should now drop their weapons after being killed by a takedown melee attack. Boxes should no longer fall through things as much. Various ship shields should now cover the items and doors better, so less ship holes basically. The interactable items such as cups, magazines and teddies should no longer be missing from HABs. Multi-tools should now be stored properly in the long-term persistent database and persist between resets. Loose commodity boxes should now be sellable. Combat AI has been fixed for various missions, and a lot more missions should now progress correctly. Ship cameras should no longer be off position. That's it in terms of additions and updates for the initial first wave PTU build for 3.11. As I said, they still need to add the 100 series, and there's a slew of bug fixes and sort of tweaks that they will need to do before it can go to wider PTU and then live. Let's take a quick look at that known issues list so we can update it rather than keep on reading it out in every sort of patch update that we do. Deadlocks may be likely and CPU usage can reach 100% and bottleneck currently. That is probably one of the most major issues. Mission givers are leaving their designated areas and wandering around their posts. Characters can be different from what was picked at the character creation screen and look different. Some NPCs are not posing correctly. Ships landed at Lorville cannot be stored. HUD elements for enemy ships are massively offset on ultra-wide reses. Ship nav markers and target highlights can sometimes be detached from ships when pitching up and down and travelling forwards. The player can spawn in a dead state, unable to interact or respawn. Obviously, pretty big problem there. The Mantis will not prevent the other player that are trying to capture from completing a short quantum travel. Turrets don't always open fire after respawning. Purchasing Oxy or Med Pens from shelves doesn't place them in your inventory properly. Players are timed out of a kiosk or an ASOP terminal after 1 minute when interacting with it. Commodity kiosks at Grimhex and Lorville don't let the users select commodities to sell. Some sentry turrets take no damage against missiles and torpedoes. Global chat text is not always displayed in Mobiglass or the visor. No charges are given to a player that rams and destroys another ship with players. Pilots of a ship containing a passenger will be charged with negligent homicide if their ship is rammed and destroyed by another player. Obviously, they're not intended. Ramming and destroying another player with a ship does not generate a crime. Various tables and chairs around the promenade and commons area have template chairs and replace me textures. Some ships and vehicles can be left in a broken state after spawning or showing as an unknown status in the ASOP terminal. Again, something that they do need to get fixed and was a persistent problem from 3.10. So those issues are being worked through currently, and some are causing major problems in the playability of the patch. Frame rates and performance is pretty bad due to those CPU problems for a lot of people. Stability isn't awful for me, but I have had a couple of 30Ks while recording. There are a lot of random kill zones and places that you might get stuck in this current patch. Even if you're just trying to leave a landing zone, that can be an effort. So there is a lot more work for Cloud Imperium to do for sure when it comes to polishing and bug fixing there. As far as I'm aware, there is not a planned reset for 3.10 to 3.11. So you should be able to keep your hard-earned ships and monies. but we won't know for sure until that patch is in our hands and live. We will be taking a look at that new gameplay in a lot more detail over the coming days from that patch. But what do you think? Are you playing Alpha 3.11 at the moment on the PTU? Are you keenly waiting for access? Do you prefer to wait for the live builds, or do you think the new content in 3.11 will keep you occupied, or is it too light? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What am I shilling for today, I hear you ask? Do you hate it when people steal all of your money and your house over the internet? I know I do. NordVPN may have been invented by wizards to help protect your personal data from the prying eyes of the dark web, a sinister cabal of technomancers that grow in power the more they know about your browsing habits. The true story of NordVPN's origins are unknown and lost to the ages, and without using facts, no one really knows how it provides more accessibility to otherwise censored websites or a safer security experience for all that use it. All I know is that it does, and that when you sign up to it, the power level of my bank account grows, and I use it, and maybe you should too. Every month we have a Star Citizen ship giveaway. For October 2020, it is for a Mercury Star Runner. This highly anticipated multi-role ship is going to be great for small to medium-sized crews that want to do a bit of everything, whether that be cargo running, data running, missions, combat, smuggling, all that sort of jazz. And it's going to be in-game and flyable very soon. All you've got to do to be in for a chance of winning one is comment on any of my videos made during October, including this one. More details down below.